This episode of Hard Beautiful Journey contains discussions about self-harm, emotional trauma, and mental health challenges that may be distressing for some listeners. Our conversation aims to shed light on healing and offer hope, but we encourage you to prioritize your well-being while listening. If these topics feel overwhelming, consider listening with a trusted friend or reaching out to a mental health professional for support. Take care of yourself and know that resources are available if you need them. Welcome to Hard Beautiful Journey, where we embrace vulnerability as our superpower and let courage light our path. I'm Tiff Carson, here to share heartfelt stories of healing, grief, and resilience. Each week, I'll talk with guests from experts to everyday heroes about their journeys through adversity. Together, we'll uncover the beauty that emerges from life's challenges and how each experience can spark profound growth. Join us on this courageous journey of connection and transformation. Hello and welcome to Hard Beautiful Journey. Today, we are exploring what I believe is an underutilized yet profoundly impactful path to healing, and that is the art of creativity. My guest on today's podcast is Maggie Parr, someone who embodies courage as she shares her journey of turning pain into purpose. After 4 decades of navigating her own healing from self-harm, Maggie authored A Creator's Guide to Stopping Self-Harm, a groundbreaking resource that blends memoir, psychology, and creative therapy. Her work offers a lifeline of hope and practical tools for those struggling with self-injury and the professionals that are supporting them. This conversation will go beyond the surface to explore how creativity can unlock healing, nurture connection, and rebuild the soul, pillars that are deeply rooted in my Healing Heart Journey framework. If you or someone you love has ever struggled to find a way forward in the darkest of times, this episode will open your eyes to the transformative power of self-expression. So let's dive in to this vital conversation and explore how creativity can become a bridge from pain to possibility. Welcome to the show, Maggie. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. That was great.
Thank you. I am super excited to have you on the podcast. Super, because I was telling Maggie off air that she actually has my dream job. If anybody has read my book, there is a part in my book where I tell people what my dream career was, and that was to be a professional colorer. That was what I thought for sure I was going to be from about 4 years old until I was 10. And then I gave up that dream. I colored mainly Disney characters, and there were ones that my mom framed for me. Like my lines were perfect. And my shading was perfect. Like it was really good. And Maggie does this for a living. She doesn't just color, she does a whole bunch of stuff, which we will get into in a second. So Maggie, your journey is incredibly powerful and it's deeply intertwined with creativity. To start, I would love if you would introduce yourself in a way that feels authentic to you. And if your journey were a piece of art, what colors, themes, or emotions would best describe you?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that question, but I think all you have to do is look at my work to see that my journey is colored with primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. I love the bright colors. I love being out there, not in your face, but very clear about what I'm trying to say. I think because I grew up feeling invisible, not having my words and my messages understood, and having to develop this voice on the skin, which is how I view self-harming cutting. I started that about the time you started coloring, around age 4, and
Wow.
finally got into therapy at 14 and did that off and on for many, many years. Still am in therapy today, but I struggled with cutting and trying to understand what that was about. I would stop for a while. It would pick up again. I would stop for a while. And when I relapsed again in my 40s, there was nothing out there to help someone like me. I had been using creativity for a long time to try and control the urges and the behavior. And I'd done pretty well, but when my life fell apart, I was going through divorce, I was in midlife, it came back and I didn't know what to do. So I worked with a great therapist, and I always recommend, if anybody is struggling with this, please find some help, find a therapist. I'm not a therapist, and what I offer is not therapy, but what I did was I started focusing on my creativity, my painting, my art. I've made a living as an artist for 35 years, but I've always had this undercurrent of these expressionist paintings that I do to understand what's going on inside. Why am I still doing this? People assume it's a behavior for young women, but a lot of older people and many men struggle with it as well. So I got through that. I used my creativity to find ways to heal, to tell new stories about what was going on. And in the process, finally, when about 8 years in to my recovery, just last year, I decided to write this book, the book that I wish I could have read at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, using creativity to help stop self-harm.
So, can you go into, if you're comfortable with it, what
Hmm.
exactly you were doing starting when you were 4?
Yeah, I don't want to be triggering to anyone. And I always say this caveat: if you are feeling like self-harming or you're feeling suicidal, please call 911 or get some help. Call 988, the suicide hotline. But a lot of times, people who cut are not suicidal. They may become so later, but the behavior is not a suicidal behavior. It's a soothing behavior. And when I first started at 4, I just was trying to get my mother's attention, and I started with the safety pin. And I remember showing her the scrape, and she just sort of turned away. She was not able to see it or deal with it. And in my younger years, I would bang my head against things. I would stab myself with pencils. It was just very impulsive. And then when I was 12, I switched to razor blades, and it became more ritualized. It was deeper wounds, and started on my forehead, moved to my arms. Later in my 20s, I moved to my ankles, fingers. I mean, stomach. I wrote on my stomach once, and with a razor blade. And it was, it was very shameful because people didn't understand. I didn't understand, but I hid it. People also they assume that cutting is about getting attention, and most of the time it's not. And in my case, it was not. It was about soothing. It was about trying to express something that didn't have words, and I hid it underneath, my clothes. I didn't want people to say. I did, and at the same time, I didn't want people to see.
Can you share the moment that you realized that creativity could help you soothe this and be a source of healing rather than just a hobby?
Yeah. I When I was in high school, I did do a lot of drawing, a lot of meditative drawing, dragons with scales over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But I didn't make the connection that that made me feel better until my 20s, when I was really trying to stop again. I was in this new relationship and I wanted to be healthy. I didn't want to scare them away. So what I did was I decided to use my creativity, to literally redirect the urge to cut. So what I would do is I would coat a blank canvas with gesso, which is a very glue-like base substrate. And then while it was drying, I would cut into it with a razor blade. And then after it dried, I would drip red paint into that. And I would incorporate those cut marks into the composition and make something beautiful out of it.
Oh, wow.
And that
Wow.
just, and I would do this really strong confrontational imagery. I literally have a painting called The Confrontation about confronting my father about abuse. And there are many of those red cuts in that. And it just felt better. It felt like I was giving the cutter, I called it the cutter, a new job
Mm-hmm.
with this powerful artwork. Very different from Disney stuff that I was
Yeah.
doing.
And that's when you were in your 20s that you
Yes.
you discovered that? Yeah.
I did it through my 20s and into my 30s. And then one day I realized I got through a whole painting and I forgot to put paint cuts.
Wow. And what did that feel like when you
That was, it
realized
felt
that?
like at that, it felt really good. It felt like I had accomplished something because I'd gotten a lot out of therapy, but therapy is only 50 minutes out of the week. And I think there's another 1,030 or something minutes left in the week. And so what do you do with the rest of those minutes? And
Exactly.
I had to get through, and I was really proud of being able to use my artwork to create paintings that really affected people. I mean, people would have emotional reactions in front of these paintings, and I felt at the time like I was through with the behavior, but I obviously wasn't, and relapsed in my 40s, and then I had to do some deeper work on the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, creativity helped there as well, and that's all documented in the book, Stopping Self Harm. Because what I did was I started doing exercises, drawing exercises, writing exercises to connect with that part of me, that cutter that was trying to say something. I wanted to learn what is it that you want? What are you trying to express? And so I
Mm-hmm.
used drawing to help with that process.
So, in your book, you discuss regulating internal states. How do you
Mhm.
see the art of creativity as a way of processing those complex emotions?
There's nothing like drawing to be able to do that. It's better than writing, I think, because we draw when we're little kids and we don't care what people think. We draw stick figures, we draw houses, whatever we feel like drawing. And so much of trauma, and I think cutting is a response to trauma of some kind. So much of that is experiencing something when we're little and we don't have words to, or we don't have ways to process the emotion. Our systems get overwhelmed. And
Mm-hmm.
so it trips a wire, something gets screwed up, and we learn cutting is soothing. But when we start drawing and letting that little kid express what was lost, the voice that was lost, the experience that was lost, drawing helps it come out in a way that nothing else does.
Mm-hmm.
And I would make these drawings. You know, I'm a trained artist. I make a living doing this. I'm good at what I do. But when I do these types of drawings to give this cutter a voice, it was like automatic drawing. I would scribble, and at the end, I would be shocked at what I had drawn because it
Mm-hmm.
was didn't look like me, but it like the drawing knew how to draw itself. And I got messages from that. I was able to feel things that I wasn't normally able to feel. I read this great book before I wrote my book called Your Brain on Art, and I learned all about how creativity and art making actually changes our brains.
Oh, wow. So, this is really interesting that you brought up automatic art
Mm-hmm.
because in my healing journey, in the when I was going through my divorce and my brother passing away, I actually did started doing automatic writing.
Wow.
And the I'm sure you can attest to this. You just said it too. Is it surprises you what
Mm-hmm.
you look at after you are out of like the meditative state, out of that reflecting period, right? And there was times where I was like, wow, what is what
Interesting.
is that,
Yeah.
right? So, but it was a source of healing for me. And
Did you
I
get insights from it? Did you get
oh,
insights from what you had written?
major insights.
Mm.
And so and it's not hard to do, but
Mm.
it's something that people are like, well, I can't do that. I don't even know how to
Yeah.
meditate.
That's weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's weird. But it's so kind of comforting that
Mm-hmm.
you're doing the same sort of thing, but with artwork, because our souls and our higher self, it has a lot to say to us if we
Mm-hmm.
just sit back and actually listen and let it flow through to us in whatever
Mm-hmm.
medium that we connect with, right? And for you, it
Yeah.
was art. For me, it was writing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there was so much good stuff that came out of those sessions. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
glad you did
so
it too.
many people, including some people that I know, say that they are not creative and that they lack talent for doing
Hmm.
creative anything, right? How do you encourage those people to just begin the process of self expression when they feel intimidated to do it or unworthy of creativity?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I tell people at parties I'm an artist, they often say, I can't even draw stick figures. That's just
That's
a
drawing.
common response to when I tell them I'm an artist. And I say, and in this book, I say, well, that's ridiculous. Everyone can draw stick figures. And you absolutely can. I have friends who have gone through my book. I have someone who's contacted me who is struggling with self-harm, who is drawing. She's not an artist. But when you start to draw a little stick figure that represents the person who wants to cut, the part of you that wants to cut, if you draw it, it will come out. If you draw that little being's higher power, that will come out. Like, who's your protector? And since little kids know how to draw, we know how to draw too. And to encourage people to get over that fear, it really is a fear of artwork, of being judged. Um, I recommend that people buy a special book, a special journal with a special pen, because a lot of us, when we do cut ourselves, use instruments and tools and keep them in a box in a special place. So we need a pen that's just for this work and a book that's just for this work. And don't show anyone. Keep it private. Let it be something between you and you, and
Mm-hmm.
not for. I'm maybe your therapist, but not for anyone else. Make that pact, and
Mm-hmm.
then you don't have to worry about judgment because no one else will be seeing it.
That was the same for writing. For I still
Mm-hmm.
do it actually, is when I am trying to release something heavy that I don't want anybody else to see or hear, I will write it out and I will burn it. And
Mm,
the act of just
interesting.
getting it out of my head, out of my heart, and for sure no one will see it if I burn it. So
Mm.
I
And it
I
probably feels good burning it too.
it does.
That's a
It's
very
another
cleansing.
release. Yeah.
Hmm.
So nobody needs to see these creative outlets that you are using,
Hmm.
but just get it out on paper and see how good it makes you feel as you're doing it and
Yeah.
after.
I'll tell you about a study in this book, Your Brain on Art. It was a study of vets who were experiencing PTSD from their time in combat, and they weren't able to talk about what had happened. It was like MRI scans of their brain showed that they had damage in what's called the Broca's area, which is responsible for language and processing uh, experiences. And it's similar to stroke patients; they have damage in the Broca's area of the brain. But when these vets were led through a creative workshop where they were given masks to decorate and then to put collages and decorate and color in different ways, and they could put on the mask, they were able to then talk about these experiences. And MRIs of their brains afterwards showed, or while this was happening, showed that they were bypassing the Broca's area and creating new pathways to be able to talk about the experience that they had lost the ability
Wow.
to verbalize before. So creating art literally creates new neuroplasticity in our brains. We
Mm-hmm.
create new pathways.
And so it allowed them to eventually start talking, or did they use other
In that
mediums?
moment of using the mask, they were able to talk about it, creating new grooves in the brain. That's just
Wow.
fascinating. There's a whole field now called neuroarts where the people who wrote the book are developing this new field to get more legitimacy, and they want it to be prescribed, arts to be prescribed in clinical settings a lot more.
I I 1,000% agree. One of my
Hmm.
children, when they were younger, was having a very hard time, and we put this child in art therapy. And the progress that we saw was amazing just
Wow.
by sitting with a piece of paper, crayons, and or just a pencil even. And through maybe like 4 sessions, we saw improvement. So I've seen it in my own family too, the
Yeah,
benefits of
that's great.
doing that work. So you mentioned that giving back can reinforce a healing journey. How has sharing your story helped other people on their own recovery?
Well, that's a fundamental principle in my life because I'm also clean and sober for 32 years now, and I work recovery
Congrats.
programs, and service is a huge part of that. I had never done that with cutting because part of the way I stopped in my 20s and 30s was by just removing all triggers on talking about it. Just it's not in my life anymore. And since I relapsed, I realized that that wasn't going to work. And so when I found healing, I've discovered this deep well of love inside me, connecting with these parts that had been lost, these childhood parts, giving my cutter a new job in life, listening to what they had gone through, feeling compassion, giving them a new job, giving it a new name. Instead of calling it the cutter, I call it faith now.
Oh, I love that.
I have these three parts inside me: hope, faith, and love, different ages. And when I started integrating and becoming whole, I had this love in my heart and I want to give back. The people who reach out to me as a result of this book, I when I'm able to guide someone to help them not cut that day, there's nothing like that feeling. I feel like I've fulfilled my purpose on earth. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense that I went through all that. If I can turn around and help somebody else get through, it gives it a whole new meaning than from a lens of suffering or trauma, or it comes through a meaning of it's a spiritual purpose. Like all of us, when we go through something, if we can help someone else, then it's all been worth it.
That's exactly how and why this podcast came to be.
Yeah, that's why I
Was
wanted to be on this podcast. It's awesome what you do.
Thank you. It was through my own hard, beautiful journey that
Hmm.
I realized that there's a purpose for this, and it's to help other people. And so sharing my story was first, but then sharing other people's and listening to other people's is healing me just as much
Hmm.
as it's healing other people that are listening to it. So
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. So what are some of the specific exercises or tools in your book that have helped transform your life?
Well, I mentioned that it's divided into four sections, starting with faith. Faith is the one who wanted to cut. Faith was a little tomboy who went through all the trauma and learned to be very protective. And so I had to learn to regulate the feelings around faith. And the exercises associated with that are more physical, like writing out all the voices, drawing out the pictures of the abuser, putting them on pieces of paper on a pillow, and then smashing the heck out of it with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, either burning or tearing them to pieces. So physical things like that that involve creativity, and exercises that have been proven to help people in the past with difficult emotions. And once I got through that phase, I found out who Faith was protecting, which was the little one, who the innocent little girl inside. And so that one was named Hope, and she wanted to do all kinds of things like coloring. Some of the exercises in that chapter are for the little kid. Coloring is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Then later on, we moved up to the teenager, who I renamed. Well, she told me her name was Elle. Found out later it stands for love. So the teenage part of me was very brainy and complicated and anxious, and so those exercises are more intellectual, I guess, or a little more complex. So like drawing your own mandalas, learning how to do that. Carl Jung had a name for them. It's cryptograms.
Mm-hmm.
So I teach people to do that, drawing a map, and it's like a lot more big picture, fitting it all together. And then there's the final chapter, which is grace, and I explain in the book how all these came about. But grace is for me the protector, and it's about spirit, it's about giving back. So there's some surprise exercises in there that are creative, that really are about giving to other people and cementing all this healing through service.
That's awesome. Your book is likened to The Body Keeps the Score. How do you see creativity working alongside somatic healing practices to address trauma that is stored deep in the body?
That's a great question. And I do talk about somatic experiencing a lot, which I received from my current therapist. And of all the modalities I have tried throughout the years that therapists have tried with me, well meaning, I would say somatic experiencing is by far the best.
Mm-hmm.
Grounding it in the body, learning to regulate my own interior was crucial. And that's what first caught me in touch with faith and with starting to draw this experience inside. Um, but when it comes to my brain just emptied. Remind me the question.
How do you see creativity working alongside somatic
The body
practices?
keeps the score. Yes.
Yeah.
So the body keeps the score. I said my book is a combination of the artist's way for readers of Body Keeps the Score because that book was just revolutionary to me, putting it all in perspective, understanding this therapeutic pathway I'd been on since I was 14 years old, since 1981 to the present, well, as the field of psychology was developing along with my recovery. Um, so when I read that, I was actually with my current therapist and we were starting SE, somatic experiencing. And that led me to this part inside. Even though that book doesn't talk about creativity, it opened the door for this is where we need more research. And I think that's where your brain on art, people like those authors stepped in and started doing that work, researching how creativity helps with trauma recovery. Um, and so I think for me, once all this is opened up, because somatic experience is very creative, you're asked to describe what it feels like in there, what color it is, what shape, what temperature, what are you feeling, where is it in your body, all those things. I think creativity is the next step on that to becoming whole, to healing. I mean, SE opens it up, creativity makes it your own. And then that's what helps us create our own pathway, our own journey, our map of where we're going is creative work.
Mm-hmm. Looking back on your journey as both an artist and as an author, how do you hope to leave behind or help other people that are navigating their own hard, beautiful journey?
Well, interviews like this, I'm trying to get the word out, and stoppingselfharm.com is a website that I developed to help with that.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm trying to think of where I was looking for help when I needed help. I
Mm-hmm.
was looking online, doing searches and things like that. I'm going to have an online workshop that you could do at your own pace. People can always reach out to me. Again, I'm not a therapist, but I'm happy to guide and mentor if it really is a good fit. But starting with the book would help. But I at least 14 million people in the U.S. are self-harming. Um, Based on current population estimates. People all over the world are doing it, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to find any way I can to reach people. So,
Mm-hmm. Even just holding a safe space for people. You don't need to be a therapist, just be somebody to listen
yeah,
and say, I understand. I have been
yeah,
there, right?
yeah.
So, how has gratitude shown up in your creative process? Gratitude is huge for me. Do you think that it plays a role in the ability to heal and create at the same time?
Yeah, I think I do gratitude lists every day. And that's actually one of the exercises in the love chapter because I had a lot of anxiety and wake up in the middle of the night with it and nightmares and things. So, alphabetical gratitude lists often
Oh, I
still get
love
me through
that.
the night. A is, I don't know how many times I've been grateful for zebras, or xylophones. But I mean, little exercises like that. But truly, gratitude, having appreciation. I've always wondered, how does one person, like my brother didn't make it either. He died of an overdose a few
I'm
years ago.
sorry to hear that.
Yes, I'm sorry about your brother too. And I've often wondered, what did I get that he didn't get that helps me get through and he couldn't?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there is an element of being willing to look at the positive side, to look for the growth that happens from pain, to look for gratitude, to connect with spirit, to feel love in our hearts for other people. Those, if you have just a little bit, you can leverage it to get more. And so much of it is this attitude that gratitude is a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Resiliency is another way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I don't know. I don't have the answer for why one person is and why one person isn't, but I do know you can change your pessimism and anxiety and depression through a lot of work on your own interior. It is possible to change. So that keeps me going.
Absolutely. So your book serves not only as a personal guide, but also a resource for professionals. Do you hope that this becomes bigger in this world and that it becomes more well known and more used in mental health and trauma recovery?
Absolutely. And I actually, the more of people I've been talking to are clinicians more so than actual people who are struggling. That's just the way it's worked out so far. But my therapist once said to me, to me, Maggie, you know more about this subject than most therapists because I've lived it and
Mm-hmm.
I've read every single book about it, trying to get help. And I have found a way through to recovery that I truly believe other people can use and modify for their own purposes, whether they're creative or not. Um, I would love for it to become big because I would love to help more people. The whole 12-step programs, they're based on one person figuring out a way out and then turning around and helping someone else. And then now it's millions of people worldwide. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm not saying I'm that person in this case, but if I or somebody else can help people from this sort of experiential, I did it, you can do it kind of viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to help educate other clinicians about what it's like being on this end of it and what I found worked in a therapeutic setting versus what was not so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then just a lot of myth busting. Like I said early on, that people think this is just young white women doing this and
Mm-hmm.
middle class white. And that's not true at all. It's all socioeconomic, ethnic, racial backgrounds, men and women, people all around the world, not just the US.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about getting attention and little things like that people make assumptions based on the media or what they've heard or people they've known. I can tell you, I know more men in my life right now who used to cut themselves than women. Um, so yeah, that's my first step in 2025 is to start giving talks at local clinics, reaching out to other clinicians and therapists, seeing where it goes. It's meant to be or it isn't. I'm not. I'll just do
Mm-hmm.
everything I can. The results aren't up to me, but I think that is a good pathway to reach more people, to talk to the clinicians.
Mm-hmm. So where are you right now in your healing journey? Like how are you feeling lately? And
Mm-hmm.
do you do this daily? Like how do you maintain? Because I know you said you had a
How do I
relapse,
maintain?
right? It's
Yeah,
a maintain.
I don't think I honestly. I know in my heart I don't need to go back to that anymore. It's been about 8 years now that I have considered myself fully healed,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't quit it. I didn't stop it. What I did was I went in and healed the reasons for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in the process, I became a whole person. I feel like a self-actualized whole person now. And I
Mm-hmm.
have challenges in life like everybody else, but I don't have depression anymore. I don't have anxiety. I meditate every day. I take care of myself. I have a great, cute little life. I love my life.
Yeah.
I love the work that I do. And even in challenging times, I can self-regulate. When bones break and they heal, they're usually stronger in that spot than they were before. And that's how I feel about this. I feel more resilient, more able to handle the challenges of life as a result of this work that I've done. And that's really what I want to help other people learn to do as well.
That's amazing. I love that you're doing this work, but I also love the other work that you do too. Can we talk a
Mm.
little bit about it? Because honestly, like I might have got a little bit
You
jealous
fangirling?
seeing
Yeah.
you, some of the art. Let's talk about the
Mm.
Disney art that you do.
Well, where I saw that you can see my hand still has paint on it because I was working on a mural today. I'm painting a scene on someone's silo on their farm.
What?
Um,
That is
so I'm
so
climbing up and
cool.
down scaffolding, but most days I sit here at my desk and I work on my digital tablet and I do designs. Right now I did some designs for a theme park, a water ride in China. I've done anything from I worked for Imagineering for many years at Disney,
Hmm.
both full time and as a independent consultant contractor. And I designed my favorite project was the carousel at Shanghai Disneyland, the Fantasia carousel. I got to do
Yeah.
all the little horses and all the
What?
figures and rounding boards and murals and the palette where the horses go. That was so much fun. I've done all the architectural theming for the new castle at Hong Kong Disneyland, the princess theme stuff.
Okay,
I
like
have
I'm
like
dying right now. Like, do you like
all
come
the
up with the
princesses.
concepts and everything, or do they like start you
Yes,
with, are you
yes, the
like just from
story.
scratch?
Well, part of what, growing up with this environment when I was little, I became very imaginative to try and fantasize ways out. And so the storytelling has formed the basis of all my career. So, yeah, Disney hired me to come up with a way to represent the princesses in the castle without showing their faces. And instead of having one princess be the theme for the castle, like Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty, it was like all of them, like a big sorority house. Same with Shanghai. So Hong Kong and Shanghai have all the princesses, and so I decided on a theme where I used their flowers. They each have like a signature flower, and
Hmm.
then their buddies. They're all their little friends, like the little mice and stuff for Cinderella, or you know, um, the I just my mind is blanking, but you get the idea. All the little
Yeah,
characters that go with them. So
yeah.
like the capitals, the carved capitals for columns, or there's a big stained glass window, or the roof
Hmm.
finials each had one of their little main character sidekicks and patterning. So it was just so much fun to A, come up with the solution they needed, and to B, implement that in an interesting way. I love projects like that.
Okay, two questions. First
Yeah.
question, do you dream about these things?
Oh, thank God, no.
Really? You just turned
I've
it
never
off?
dreamt about a Disney character yet. I think if I
What?
do, I
Yeah.
might have to check myself in somewhere. What I do dream about is work stress. Like I'm on a deadline and I
Yeah.
can't finish it, or
Yeah.
like I had to go to Tokyo for a month once to paint murals, and I dream about Tokyo all the time, like not having my paint supplies with me. I don't know why that stuck in my head,
Yeah.
but no Disney characters yet.
So you just answered the other one. So you do both? You go to location and paint and do all that. And then I think I saw one where they actually take your digital one and put it like on
Yeah,
hotel rooms or whatever, right?
yeah, yeah. Most everything is digital now. When I started out, I was all analog, hand painted stuff, and I would paint these small studies and then hand them over to the muralist. And I didn't like that because it would change in the process, and I didn't have a control over the final look. So I love the digital process because I can draw it from start to finish, and I do the final to size scale artwork that they print out and wallpaper up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I also still love classical oil painting. I've taken many, many years of study to reach a mastery level in oil painting, and I teach classical techniques now to students in person,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm developing online classes. But I've done probably maybe well over 100, if not closer to 200, oil paintings of Disney characters and famous artworks. So I've done it for the parks, for the cruise ship, and for private clients.
Mm-hmm.
Things like the mini Lisa or duck with a pearl earring, or that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So, and
So
I get to do it in the style.
have you been to all of the Disney parks then around
I
the
have
world?
not been to the Asian parks yet
Huh.
because when those were developed and I was working on them, it was all digital and they didn't feel the need to send me there.
Darn it.
Yeah, yeah. I will. I'll get there eventually. But I've been to Paris, to Florida. I started out obviously in California because that's where Imagineering is. So.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you guys have to check out Maggie's Instagram account because like
Thank you.
I literally was like drooling over all of it.
Oh, that's sweet.
You are extremely talented, and you have to check out her work. So I always end every episode asking my guests what they are grateful for today, because there's always something to be grateful for, even in our hard, beautiful journeys. So what are you grateful for today?
Do I have to choose just one thing?
Nope. You can list them all off.
Oh, okay, I'll make it fast. My cute little life, my sobriety, mental health, all my abundance, my artwork, I love it, my dog, my cat, my partner, our house, my mom's alive. I could just go on and on. The books I'm reading right now, the book I wrote, all the projects, I just love it. There's so much. And if you had known me 20 years ago, I was like doom and despair. So to have gratitude, I would say the thing I'm most grateful for is being able to feel gratitude every single day.
I love that. I love that. And I feel the same way. I
Good.
was doom and gloom. Why me? This sucks. This blows. You name it. And now it, like, I just
Yeah.
can bounce back quicker. I can get myself out of
Yeah.
that funk quicker just by finding the gratitude. So, and
Right.
today for me, my gratitude is, there's two, is having you, a real life colorer, professional colorer on my podcast.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
second was the sky tonight. It was literally like it was painted. It was so beautiful, like it looked like cotton candy. So those are
Wow.
the moments where I'm just like, yeah, thank you, God.
Yeah.
That is
Life is good.
amazing. Life is good.
Yeah.
So anyway, what we are going to do now is I am going to show everybody where they can find you. So Instagram is at Maggie Parr Art, and website you have two. You have maggieparr.com and stoppingselfharm.com. So yes, please everybody go and check out
Thank
Maggie's work and her book, and you all have the creativity in you, even if it starts with a stick person, right, Maggie?
Yes. Absolutely.
Just get a few more colors.
I'll bet you money. How's that? I'll bet you money. If you can't draw
Oh,
a stick figure, I'll pay you money.
exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your hard, beautiful
Thank you
journey
so
with
much for
us.
having me.
It was so wonderful.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for being here for this episode of Hard, Beautiful Journey. I hope today's episode inspired you to embrace your own vulnerabilities and recognize the strength within you. Remember, every story of resilience adds to the beauty of our shared journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a review. Your support helps me spread hope and healing to even more listeners. Until next time, keep shining your light and embracing the beauty in your journey. Bye-bye.